can you feel when I say this with these types of light? I'm gonna find you. It's simple. Doesn't feel like much. But if I say, I'm gonna find you, you see the difference. You probably see the difference. So this is the purpose of this speech right now. I'm gonna tell about explain the effects of lights in movies. First thing you need to be clear about exactly what mood are you after. A sunny mood, a dreamy mood, scary. So let's see how to produce that feeling in an image using key, contrast, and color. The key, there's two types of keys. The low key and the high key. The high key is basically light on dark. People use that to transmit the feel of warm, cheerful energy. Like in this picture, in the low picture, the low key is mainly used in dark images. Like in this movie right here, for example, Christopher Nolan, he used a lot of like low key in this movie. Actually, the whole trilogy of Batman, he uses a lot. You can see that. You can feel right now in this scene, for example, you can see the dark of it. The low key is, as I say, mainly dark images accented by lighter area. Like, for example, right here, it's a light area, and right here, it's the low key using. The next thing is the contrast, as is in the key. The contrast, there's a high and a low contrast. The high contrast, it's usually to range and gradation of tones, and from black and white. You usually use this image right here shows right here on the contrast that it's usually most white image with the high contrast. So, for example, Harry Potter, this scene right here uses a lot of high contrasts. You can see that this is the after scene when Dumbledore dies, and it wants to show us how sad it is, this scene right here, how cheerful and in the scene when he's talking to Harry. So this is a good example for a high contrast. The color that we use, that usually used in movies, are nothing better to influence the mood. So if you want to influence a color of a light, if you want to influence a mood or anything, color is the best. The best thing with the combination of all the contrast and key. Mixing different types of lights give different emotions. For example, hot red with sunny yellow gives you like a brightness. And living green with deep black gives you a sensation of despair, like in this movie over here, Matrix. Everyone knows this movie, right? This right here, this entire trilogy too is using living green and deep black. Mostly just to show how different from the real world, from the fake world, as you say over there, the Matrix. But actually, they want us to feel the despair of being in the Matrix, how bad it is to stay in the Matrix. So that's why they use mostly living green lights and deep blacks when they are in the Matrix. So to show a good mood in a movie or in an image, first you need to decide what mood you're shooting, and then what keys to use. And to finish with the perfect image, just find a contrasting color. With all that, you will definitely express emotion in image. Do I stay here or I stay
No, you don't need to stay up there. That's fine. Have a seat. Karen, you're doing this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you think?
So, well, I think it was really good. He has a really good opening, and his thesis was clear. And I like how in the beginning he gives like 2 examples. His visuals were like really good. They were clear, but I think it would have been better if he would have turned off the lights so we could really see what the image was. Since we were talking about light, so, his explanations were like really good, for like someone who doesn't really know about, the subject that he's talking about, and he gives like, a good explanation, and yeah, it was really good, but, I think he could, improve with his posture. He was like standing, not, like straight.
I saw at the end he was leaning on the podium.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the rostrum as we call it, or the lectern. I think we went through that discussion the other day. Okay. Anything else?
And maybe you could include something like a conclusion about, because he was, like when he was done with his speech, like he didn't, like, he just didn't say anything, like it was done, that he was done.
All right. I thought Karen did a very nice job there evaluating the speech. There are most of the things that I would agree with. There are a couple of things that you missed that I think are kind of important to talk about. The attention device needs to work a little bit more effectively. I think the idea of turning off the lights is a good idea, but I wasn't sure whether it was the way you were saying the words or whether or not it was the light that was being emphasized in this particular point. And I know that there was a point to turning off the lights, so that was the closest I got to kind of understanding what the point was. Once you identified the topic, then it made a little bit more sense, and I think kind of operating, engineering it in reverse, I get the idea of what you're trying to accomplish there. I'm just not sure it worked as well as it might have. The subject is fine. You identify your purpose statement pretty well. There's a preview of what the major points are going to be. I think your preview needs to be presented a little bit more smoothly, but I knew you did have a good setup of what the content structure was going to be. I thought you defined all the terms pretty well. I thought your explanations were relatively solid. I would definitely agree with Karen. I thought the visuals explained and showed us what it was you were talking about pretty effectively, but at times it might have worked better if you had had somebody maybe turn off the lights for you so we could see some of the things a little bit more clearly, because well, about contrast. We didn't have enough contrast because of the lights washing out some of the images that you were talking about. One thing that I think is definitely missing from the presentation is any reference material, any sources to support your position or contention, either about moods, feelings, or the effectiveness of this. You make reference to particular films, for instance, but other than that, there's no discussion about why the director. You don't quote Christopher Nolan as to why he made those choices. You're not telling us what the Wachowskis were trying to do with the colors. Was that their intention, or did they just look into it? Then that would be material that you could easily find. I'm sure. I wouldn't be at all surprised that it's not included in commentary on Laserdisc, not Laserdisc, gosh, sorry, that's me, on your DVDs or Blu-rays, for instance, and there would be some information there. But I'm sure plenty of people have talked about those things. I know there are cinematography magazines that talk about all that kind of stuff in detail, and if you're a filmmaker, almost certainly you've read some of those kinds of things, so you want to get that into the presentation. Like I said, the visual materials I thought worked pretty well, with the exception of us maybe needing the lights off so we could see a little bit more of the detail in some of the images that you've got. And then I'm also going to agree with Karen about the end of the speech. I think you need to have a little bit more of a conclusion. The body of the speech is pretty well organized. Look, it's a topical organization around key, contrast, and color, so that's easy. The movement between the points was sometimes a little bit abrupt, and you need to have something that's smoother, something that summarizes each point before you move on to the next point. And I got the impression that sometimes you were just hitting a hard right and moving to the next idea, and then boom, it's time to turn again. And I'm not getting that turn signal and the smooth move around the corner. Instead, it's like, boom, we're there. And you want to be careful about that. Give us some indication so that we know what's going on. When people say, why do you need transitions? That's kind of what I feel like saying. I said, well, why does somebody need to signal in front of you when they're turning right? Why is it okay for them to just turn right at the last minute? Because you have to end up hitting your brakes when they slow down suddenly. You didn't know they were going to do it. Other people have to kind of adjust to that process. And listening is the same way. You got to adjust to what the speaker's doing. All right, thank you.